points every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
This St. Patty's Day weekend brought to you by Carpet Time, where they're saving you the green.
You'll cheer and rave with the money you save. Buy at Carpet Time.
Live from the studios of News Talk 1480 WHBC, it's Kenny and JT.
And we continue with the Kenny and JT show. JT off today. Well, he's not off. He's actually at the Home and Garden Show up at Hall of Fame Village. So if you're out and about up there, go say hi to him. But I'm in studio, and on Fridays, how lucky are we? We get another Hall of Famer in studio with us as part of the Hall of Fame Residency program. One of only two exclusive kickers in the National Football League Pro Football Hall of Fame. Morten Andersen joining us here on the Kenny and JT show. How are you, Morten?
Doing well. Good to be here.
You and I were talking before we came on the air, this Hall of Fame residency program. It's so awesome for the community, for us and that, but they keep you busy, don't they? Tell everybody what you've been up to since you've been here.
I mean, yesterday I think I did like 9 different events. A lot of it at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we did some round tables, some Q&As, a luncheon, a couple of luncheons, healthcare company, fan engagement. Today we went to Honors Court. That was very interesting, right down here, downtown Canton, and talked to some of those guys, the veterans who were trying to find their way and who've stumbled a little bit, but getting a second chance here and some checks and balances, and that was really interesting. That was the first time I've been in court, so very, very interesting time, very inspiring to be with those guys, and spent a couple hours at the hall again. Notre Dame ribbon cutting today. We have that new exhibit for the honoring all the legacy of this, obviously, of Notre Dame and the Irish, and I think we have 14 Hall of Famers that went to Notre Dame. I think it's the most of any school.
All right.
And it was great. Dave Casper was there telling stories about his Raiders days and his Notre Dame days, and it's been great so far. Tonight I have a little dinner, and we'll go tomorrow with a boot camp. I'm going to have about 24 kids from high schools around Canton, and we're going to kick some footballs.
That's awesome. And we'll get to some kicking of footballs with me a little later in the show. You and I were talking. We'll get to that.
I'm ready, yeah.
But you went to Michigan State.
Yeah.
Did you ever play Notre Dame when you were at Michigan State?
Yeah, so I was telling the story today to all the alumni up there. I said my only really great memory from those games, because we got our butts whooped, was I kicked a 53-yarder, which at the time was the longest in that stadium's history, right into Touchdown Jesus. If you've been to the stadium, you know that Touchdown Jesus is right behind the goalpost in one of the end zones, and I kicked a big kick that way. So that's my good memory about playing Notre Dame. But we never beat them.
Yeah, they back in the day, that was the gold standard, the Golden Domers, as they called them, and everything. So I was doing research on you, as we always do for this. Hall of Fame class of 2017, Jason Taylor, Terrell Davis, Kenny Easley, Jerry Jones, Kurt Warner, LaDainian Tomlinson, and you. Let's start with that. When you, like I said, there are only 2 pure kickers in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, Lou Gross is in, but he offensive, defensive lineman. George Blanda, quarterback, kicker. You and Jan Stenerud. That's it. So when you get the call and you find out after 25 years in the National Football League, at the time you were the all-time leading scorer in the NFL, you get that call or that knock, whatever it was.
It was a knock on the door. Dave Baker, big knock on the door in Houston. And, the year before I had gotten a knock on the door, but my wife had forgotten to tell me she had ordered room service. That was not a knock I wanted. That was, honey, from 3 to 5 on selection day, no room service, please. So this was a good knock in Houston, and it sure was a memorable experience. And obviously the rides for 8 years, it's been unbelievable. I've come back every year, and it's just been great.
So as you're going through your career, and the famous line from Todd Haley, "Nice job, you effing kicker, nice job," right? They don't get the respect, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, so is this is career is unfolding 25, are you thinking at all about the Hall of Fame?
I did not. I mean, my main focus was, hey, let me see how long I can play. Can I put up a bunch of points? And I could, and it was a great ride. And 382 games is the most ever played. So this 360 consecutive games scoring. That's 22 and a half years of scoring at least a point in every game. I'm proud of that. That's a record. I don't know if that'll be broken in a long time, if ever, because guys are making so much money now. They're making $7-8 million to kick a football. It's humble to think about. My first year salary was $40,000. So,
really,
yeah. So things have changed.
Man.
They're college kids making multi-million dollars in NIL money now.
Right.
So the game has changed a lot, but it's still the same way to get there. You got to have commitment, and you got to put the work in and be structured and disciplined. And it took me a while to learn that, but when I did, I said, this is a gift that's been given. I got to keep sharp for as long as I can, and maybe I'll get lucky and have a long career, and I kind of did.
You did, no doubt about it. 25 years, New Orleans, Atlanta, New York Giants, Kansas City, Minnesota, Atlanta again to close it out, 82 through 2007. Where did it all start as a kicker for Morten Andersen? You're from Denmark, right?
Yep.
Okay, so how does someone from Denmark get involved with kicking a football?
Yeah, I was an exchange student in Ben Davis. It was through a program called Youth for Understanding, and it was a 10-month program designed to integrate you into an American society, learn the language. I didn't speak English at the time. This was 1977, and I lived with the Baker family. They had 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Wait a second. You lived with the Baker family,
yeah,
and David Baker knocks on your door.
Yeah, that's true.
How ironic is that?
That is. I don't think they were related.
Right, but
anyway,
right?
You're right. So I'm on the west side of Indianapolis, go to Ben Davis High School, and I've literally been in the country for a couple of days, and they were like, hey, we need a kicker for our football team. We were very good. We were 11-1 that year. We went all the way to semi-state, but I became the kicker. They lined me up, and the head coach said, hey, just kick the crap out of it, see those yellow goalposts through those, and we're going to be in good shape. So that's basically what I did on the second day. 80 guys are watching me, and I kept making them and moving back. So I had 80 new friends pretty quickly.
I bet.
And that's how the American dream, started. And it was really cool when in 2017, when I got inducted, my head coach, Bob Wilbur, who was really gravely ill at the time, but he did manage to come to the induction, and I did put the jacket on him and said, listen, this is the reason I have this jacket is really you. It started with you and Ben Davis, high school, and it was quite emotional. But
oh yeah,
and then he passed a week later.
Did he really?
So it was
made it to that point, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
That's awesome. Happy to have in studio with us Hall of Famer Morten Andersen, class of 2017. So, did you play soccer?
Yeah, I played soccer and team handball. I was also a gymnast.
I was going to say how did that maybe help you?
Yeah.
As a kicker and longevity because I remember talking to Lynn Swan. He took ballet and that remarkable catch in Super Bowl X he makes against the Cowboys. It's because of his control of his body from the dancing. So how did gymnastics maybe help you kick for 25 years?
Well, I was tumbling and vaulting, and so there's a lot of explosion there. There's a lot of movement that's explosive, and so that helped me. Obviously, when you kick a football, it's almost like an F-15 getting launched off an aircraft carrier. You line it up and you fire it off, and that same concept in kicking. And so gymnastic, having the flexibility and the core strength and the explosiveness. I was a long jumper too on track and field, so all of those things I think contributed to not being versatile, but also being able to sustain it, not having injuries and things like that.
Yeah, so you're a left-footed kicker. You play soccer, you got to kick with both feet. So were you always left-footed dominant? Or
left-footed.
So, okay.
And left-hand dominant.
Okay.
So
all right.
I didn't throw left-handed. I
don't know if you could be like a baseball player, switch hit, switch kick. You know what I mean?
No, I could not.
Okay.
I'm a lefty.
All right. And
play golf left-handed, too.
Do you? Okay, so everything's left-handed, left-footed for you. When you get drafted in the 4th round, were you surprised you went that high in the NFL draft?
No, because they had. I was projected really anywhere from mid-second round to 4th round, and I think Tampa Bay was looking at me on one of the last picks of the 3rd round, but I don't know what happened. New Orleans, I dropped to New Orleans, and they took me in the 3rd pick of the 4th round.
Okay. How much did it help you playing in a dome?
I looked at my numbers, and they're actually better outside. So I don't know if that helped me. I mean, it was nice. I mean, you slept pretty well at night when it was raining outside, and you knew that there was a roof over your head. Right. So, but as far as statistics, I had my performance was equally as good and maybe even better outside.
I looked at your numbers. Extra points, which aren't a given now. Granted, they were closer, when you played, but still,
yes,
you made 99% of your extra points.
Well, you're going to have a couple of blocks here and there. I mean,
but 99%.
Guys are going to squeeze through the air, the B gap, and get a big hand up there, and ba-boom. It's a bad sound for a kicker, that ba-boom. Yeah, I don't like that one.
Yeah, that'll give you nightmares, especially at the end of a game or something.
Oh, man, it's not good. So, we just said protect from the inside out. We were too fast. We were 1-1-5 snap to kick, so we were so fast that there was no way they were going to come from the outside and block it.
Okay. Unless
you just completely whiffed on a guy,
Right.
But we usually didn't. We had pretty good units.
849 of 859. That's remarkable. You were about an 80% field goal kicker as well.
8 out of 10 times I succeeded. 20% I didn't.
Yeah, but it's like in baseball, 3 out of 10 is good.
That's all-star.
Right. And so back then, because I was looking up, you and I were talking, Roy Girella is my all-time favorite kicker. No offense, because I was a Steelers fan.
Hey, he was great. He was fun. Girella's Gorillas, right?
That's it. Yeah. But he really wasn't great, because I went back and I looked at his numbers.
What was his numbers?
Compared to yours. You ready for this?
Yeah.
He was the AFC Pro Bowl kicker in 1972. He made 68% of his field goals.
Yeah. But that was a big number back then.
I guess. In 74, 69% of his field goals, and he was 2 of 6 in field goals in the Super Bowl. But I didn't. Back then, we weren't as analytically driven or worried about the percentages. We just remembered the ones they made, not so much the ones they missed.
Right.
But that's why when I look at your number, 80% field goal, 99% extra points, and I compare it to my guy, Roy Girella, that's why you're in the Hall of Fame.
Well, and the guys now are kicking at an even higher level.
Right.
The 50-yarder is like a 40-yarder, and the 60-yarder is like our 50-yarder back in the 80s. I had the most 50-yarders at the time back in the 80s, and, that's been obliterated now. I think somebody has a lot more, and they're, it's normal to see guys 2-3 a game over 50. I was the first to do it in the history of the game, 3 over 50, back in 1995. Wow. But now that's done with regularity. I don't know what they're putting in the balls.
I was going to ask you, where is that coming from? Why are they stronger, more accurate?
Well, I think guys are starting earlier, where before it would be like, hey, let's go find a foreign guy that has soccer background, Let's go find Gary Upremian from Yugoslavia, Let's go find Roy Girella, Let's go find Jan Stenerud, Shaman. Let's go find, Tony Fritsch or, They were all foreign. Benny Ricardo, they were all foreigners. Yeah. And then they started to become homebred. They started earlier, and there was just better coaching, Most of my special teams coaches left me alone. It was the greatest thing because they trusted that I knew what the hell I was doing.
Right.
And so the game has just changed. It's become much more specialized. It used to be that we would have the offensive lineman. He would go on a 10-play drive, and now all of a sudden he's got to put another hat on and say, hey, I got to snap it 8 yards. And he's sweaty and dirty and grimy. Now we got long snappers. All they do, their unis are clean, and they hang out with the kickers and the punter.
You're not even allowed to hit them these days.
You can't line up in the A-gaps. You can't load on them. You can't do anything. You can't push them back. You can't springboard. Back in the day, you could springboard and block kicks. Hell, you could take somebody and hoist them, and let them fly up in the air, and then hopefully you timed it right. All that stuff is now, it's all,
Well, they said the game's easier for quarterbacks, wide receivers, and kickers these days.
DBs are just getting absolutely annihilated with the rule changes, and soon we won't have a kickoff. We'll just say we're going to start on the 25-yard line. The kickoff is obsolete. Listen, who doesn't want to see Devin Hester go for 105 yards and win a game? I mean, that was an explosive opening kickoff in the Super Bowl he did to set the tone for that game, that's gone. Onside kick's gone. You got to announce it, and you can only do it in the fourth quarter.
That was the great thing.
What are we
doing?
It was
a surprise.
I used to do that big bounce, invented that back in the 80s. We had that big bounce, and we would surprise. We had a tremendous amount of success on the onside kicks. Now you can't do it till the fourth quarter, and you can't overload.
Right.
You got to have 5-5 on both sides, and you got to announce it to them. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Well, it's where the safety, that's what it's all about in the game, and I get it. to a certain degree. But
they got to dial that back
somehow, right? Somewhere they got to,
because otherwise you basically making. I mean, so why are we punting now? You know,
right? That too. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. Thrilled to have Morten Andersen in studio with us, Hall of Fame class 2017. You mentioned about all the kickers coming from around the world. No surprise that our 2 Hall of Fame kickers are Norway and Denmark, right?
You know, and Jan
Stenerud.
Yeah, and Jan Stenerud's journey is interesting because he came to Montana State on a ski jumping scholarship.
Really?
He's ski jumping, and he walks across the field one spring and sees a football and kicks the living crap out of it, and the head coach happened to see it and goes, "You're no longer ski jumping, you're a kicker." You're a kicker. And that was Jan's introduction to it.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
He's a lot of fun. He'll be in May for residency. I'm sure you'll.
Oh, great!
I'm sure you'll get him. You'll get
it's
him.
another kicker. I get to talk to the 2 Hall of Fame kickers.
Yeah, you'll have fun with him. He's great.
That's fantastic. Well, what I did was, as a kid, I wanted to be a kicker.
Yeah.
Roy Jarella, I messed around with it. I had his kicking tee go down to the field and kick. So I followed kickers. I would write letters to every team's kicker. And see who would send me something back. I'll tell you some of the guys.
Okay.
Mike Mayer from Atlanta. Okay.
Mike Mayer?
Yes, Mike Mayer. 1980, 1981, somewhere in that. Atlanta Falcons.
That does not ring a bell.
Yeah.
You're not talking about Mick Luckhurst?
No, not Mick Luckhurst. Mike Mayer. Yeah. I have this black and white photo of him. And it's
I don't know who that
signed.
is. That's weird.
Pete Gogolak, the first ever
soccer-style kicker.
Shouldn't he be in the Hall of Fame?
That's not for me to say. I mean, again,
I
don't know what his numbers are. I don't know. I know he was a pioneer, okay, and we have to credit him for being.
So if not as a player, as a contributor, because you're kicking soccer style because of what the Gogolak brothers did, and Pete was the first one.
I want as many guys in as I can, and I think it'll take time for more specialists, unfortunately. It's a log jam. It's a tough ticket.
Yeah, so he's the first soccer-style kicker. Fred Cox, I think, should be in the Hall of Fame for this reason. He invented the Nerf football.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
I mean, come on. Now, again, contributor to football, and he played in the league and was in Super Bowls.
Yeah, Fred Cox was a straight-on kicker. Yep. You know, of course, Tom Dempsey, who was my funny story with Tom was he was working for a credit bureau in New Orleans, and my agent from IMG dropped dead of a heart attack at 50 in the middle of negotiating a 4-year deal with the Saints. So I didn't have an agent. So I ran into Tom. And I say, "Hey, Tom, I'm in the midst of negotiating a new contract. I know you work with the credit bureau, so you're used to negotiating. Do you want to finish this for me?" So
really?
Tom said, "Yeah, I'll do it." He finished contract negotiations. I'm like, "What should I pay?" Because normally you pay 3% of the contract value. He said, "Give me $500." I gave him $500 cash, and we were done.
That's awesome.
That was my Tom Dempsey, and he was born with half an arm, half a foot, you know, and he had that mallet, man, and
63-yarder.
Oh yeah. Tulane Stadium against Detroit.
Yes. Now, you made a 63-yarder at Michigan State, correct?
At Ohio State.
And I was you see the hat, so that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, good year for you guys, for sure. So that's still a Big Ten record, actually.
I was going to ask you, that's your longest one at pro or college, right?
Yes,
63 yards.
Yes, it is.
And was it in Columbus?
Yes, it was. Right before halftime. We got our butts waxed, but, at least I had that memory and said, "Hey, that was a big kick."
So 53 against Notre Dame and 63 against the Buckeyes.
That's right. That's correct.
And then 60 in the pros was your long, correct?
Against the Bears, yeah.
60 yards. Do you change the approach with the longer field goal, or is it the same?
You want to see the ball. You want to make sure you see the ball sitting there vertically before hitting it. So you're going to slow down just a little bit and take a little bit of a longer stride to get the power. And other than that, it's the same strike point and everything.
How much of a weather person were you when you played outdoors?
Again, whatever was presented to me, I let the game play me. I tried early on. I was bad at forcing myself on the game, saying, "Oh, I wish I have a kick in the first quarter because then I'll have a good game."
Oh, okay.
But as I matured, I learned to just prepare as well as I could. I kicked on 8-foot goalposts Monday through Saturday. And that was really great because I got 18-6 on Sunday, so that was a big difference. That was a great tool. It also intimidated the hell out of the competition when they came in and tried to take my job And I counted over 625 years to try to take my job.
Really?
And they go, where are the goalposts? And the equipment guys were asked. I had told them when that question comes up, just say Mr. Andersen likes to kick on these.
Wow.
And there was a mind blow. They couldn't hang. It was good. It's good fun. Yeah, it was good
that's
fun.
That's awesome. Hey, you're trying to keep a job, right?
Job security,
I mean, whatever it takes to do that. And, you get in their head. And, we always hear how mushy the kickers are between the ears at times.
But weather, back to your question about the weather, it doesn't really, the big thing for me was, am I wearing the right cleats on my plant foot, because I want a good plant. I want good footing. So that's why I walk, and that was something Jan Stenrud taught me. He would walk the hash marks before the game, and he would check, because kicks are going to come on the hash marks. They're not coming anywhere else, really. Most of the kicks are going to be on the hashes, and so I would check all the hashes and kind of mentally remember where bad spots were and that kind of thing, and I would test it.
Interesting.
And that was it.
Similar to the old Boston Garden, there were dead spots on the floor, so the guys,
I didn't know that.
The Celtics players would take a ball and they would dribble to see where the dead spot was, so they'd stay away from that.
That's interesting.
So, the little things like that, the mind games, the edge, along those lines. Morten Andersen, our guest in studio. Morten, I want to ask you about Adam Vinatieri.
Sure. He'll be a Hall of Famer.
You think so? I mean, some of the biggest kicks in football history, right?
He's a Pro Football Hall of Famer. It's just a matter of when he comes in. And, he's the leading scorer in the history of the game now. I was the leading scorer in the history of the game, and I had to wait 5 years. He may have to wait a year or two. I mean, he's not going in this year, but I would be surprised if he's not in the very near foreseeable future. I mean, it's not going to take him long to get in.
Yeah, you would.
He belongs, obviously.
And the Patriots and that story, that's...
and also with the Colts. I mean, he was very good with the Colts for many years.
He was outstanding wherever he kicked.
Yeah,
and made big kicks.
In bad weather.
All right, I was at this game, and I want to talk to Morten Andersen about a specific game that took place in 2002. You were playing with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was your first game, I believe, with
against
the Chiefs.
The Cleveland Browns in Cleveland.
Yes. And it's known as the Dwayne Rudd game to Cleveland Browns fans.
That's correct. It was an untimed play with no time left on the clock. It's the only time in my career I kicked a game-winning field goal with zeros on the clock. And he threw his helmet. And you can't end the game on a defensive penalty. He got a 15-yard for unsportsmanlike, and offensive lineman Tate had gotten the ball from Trent Green as he was being sacked. Dwayne thought he had a sack,
right,
and celebrated a little too early, and they threw a flag on him and got us into a 35-yarder from the left hash, and we won the game.
He remembers it like it was yesterday. So do I.
Yeah.
Now, as a Steeler fan, didn't bother me as much, but all my buddies that are Browns fans, it was
a hell of a game. It was a big
39-37
high-scoring game. It was back and forth. It was a great game, great football game, hotter than Haiti. I mean, it was hot. I remember being up there on that lake, man, and it had to be early September, maybe late season opener. So it had to be early on, and it was hot. I remember very, very hot, but boy, was that fun.
You know what? I pulled up the video just to watch it again. 4 seconds left. You're at your own 47-yard line.
Ball game.
Right, because you're probably thinking Hail Mary, right? Because you're not going to have time to throw it downfield and kick a field goal.
I don't think we had timeouts. I don't know if we did or not, but you're thinking this game is over. Just play, Cleveland could have just sat back and played a soft zone,
Right.
And just kept everything in front of them, tackled the guy, and it's over.
That's it. Keep him in bounds.
Rudd had other ideas, man. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's like, look at me. I'm the greatest player in the world.
Only in Cleveland, man. Only in Cleveland. I mean, to be a Cleveland fan, and listen, I follow my Saints, and we've had rough times too, but oh my. I don't know if I can go as far and say that it's been as bad as what's happening up there in Cleveland, Ohio, man. It's God bless those fans.
They are loyal to a fault, but they are the most loyal fans. Never been to a Super Bowl. One of 4 or 5 teams that have never even been to a Super Bowl, and they've lived through the drive, Red Right 88, the fumble, the helmet throw. I mean,
I was just with Bernie Kosar yesterday, and Bernie and I were sharing stories, and what a great man he is, and I'm so happy for him. He's coming back. It's doing good work out there, and he was a hell of a player. I mean, they had pretty good run with him for a bit there, and but There's always next year, Cleveland.
There you go. You know what we call it, the Super Bowl in Cleveland? The NFL draft, picking second overall this year.
That's good.
That's what it is.
Oh, boy.
Everybody gets together and celebrates the draft.
We need some wins up there so the Flats can be on fire, man.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
You knew all about the Flats back in the day. Morten Andersen, our guest. Morten, you said you've been back every year. Why was it important for you not to come back during the parade and the Hall of Fame weekend, but to be part of this residency program?
Well, to honor the game and also to be able to pass on the knowledge that I have over all these years. Thank God. I mean, it's God's cruel joke on us that it takes a lifetime to stop making the same mistakes over and over again. When we're young and have youthful oblivion, it's just we don't know what we don't know, and then with age comes some levity and wisdom and. So I think it's important to pass that on to the younger generation and to people that want to receive it. And my foundation, our family foundation, has a motto that says, "What you give will grow, what you keep will perish," and that's what I try to do. And for selfish reasons, it's just humbling to be back here at my second home, and walk around and meet the staff and the fans at the hall and talk to people and engage in a meaningful way and tell stories and, sit here with you and tell stories and bring that out to the fans. This is a good thing you're doing,
Yeah, we love what we do, and we love the opportunity to hear stories.
I love what I do, and I think most guys that come back really embrace it and make it their unique residence experience. Because everybody's different. Right. Not everybody's, not every Hall of Famer is an extrovert. There's, we have different personalities, and I think Michelle Norris from the Hall, she does a fantastic job of marrying, if you will, or combining the activities and bringing out the strengths of that particular Hall of Famer. They do a really good job of that, and I've had nothing but fun.
That's great.
I look forward till tomorrow, too.
All right, two things before we let you get out of here. Number one, what is Morten Andersen's most memorable kick?
Well, every kick that went through the pipes were memorable because, I remember those. I don't remember any of the misses. Did I miss? Yeah, I did. 2 out of 10 times. I would have to say the most meaningful for the team, and that's really what's most important, was the NFC Championship kick in overtime against the Vikings to put us into the Super Bowl in 1999, January 17th, in the Metrodome. That was a pretty big kick.
That will go down in history, right?
It should.
Very, very important. And as I mentioned to you, I wanted to be a kicker, never did it. So I became, a finger flick
Finger
football.
Football flicker?
Yeah, I was. Very good. I can't say that like you did fast 3 times.
We got to be careful with that one.
FCC will find us both. So finger flick, and then I also bought the toy Super Toe where you had a guy and you banged him on the head
and it kicked.
Like Fred Cox. It was a straight-on kicker, right?
Right on.
So I thought I had the Super Toe game here at the station.
I feel there's a challenge coming.
There is a challenge coming. So I go back in the office, and I have the goalpost, and I have the footballs, but I don't have Super Toe. Okay?
Okay.
And I made the triangle finger flick football. So I thought we'd combine Super Toe and finger flick in the conference room.
Let's do it.
And have a challenge because I got to play Pop-A-Shot with Larry Bird
That's fun.
in 1997 at the All-Star game here in Cleveland.
That's fun.
So I thought, you know what? Another Hall of Famer, finger flick football with Morten Andersen, one of the greatest kickers, if not the greatest kicker in NFL history.
Let's go.
We'll get a break in right now. We'll post this on social media.
I'm going to call timeout on you and try to ice you. You can't ice, so you can't do anything. Can't do anything with me.
That is awesome. He's talking smack, just like Larry Bird did. Oh, he flapped his gums the entire time and he beat me. So we're going to get a break in right now.
There's a reason I got a gold jacket and you're sitting behind a mic. That's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, get a break in. I'm going to go challenge. I'm going to beat this guy, or at least I hope to. And we'll show you on social media.
Yeah, and Cleveland's going to win the Super Bowl.
Get a timeout. We'll come back with more after this.
It's Kenny and JT on WHBC.
Hey, maybe that gopher or groundhog or whatever it is was right, because now all of a sudden it seems like spring is finally